Hi there Year 5, it's Mrs Flavell here, introducing your next science lesson. Now the first science lesson we've done on plants was the reproduction in plants where two plants were involved. Now this lesson is going to be reproduction in plants where there's only one plant that's involved. Some plants are really clever things, and especially when they need to reproduce, if they can't find a partner plant to reproduce, then they can reproduce on their own. So let's have a look and see how these very clever plants do just that.
Our success criteria today is going to be able to describe how a cutting can be made to reproduce a clone plant, be able to identify advantages and disadvantages of sexual and asexual reproduction, and to know there are different ways to make new plants. Now, this is going to be the way that you are able to answer a few questions and to describe a few processes that go on as we go along. And obviously the pause buttons are being used for you to help you answer these. So your main overall target is I can describe how some plants can asexually reproduce. Asexual reproduction. Some plants use sexual reproduction to make seeds which grow to make new plants. These plants need pollen containing the male gamete or sex cell from one flower to fuse with an ovule, the female gamete, of another flower, which makes a seed. However, some plants use asexual reproduction to make new plants. Unlike sexual reproduction, asexual reproduction only needs one parent plant to make new plants. Because there is only one parent plant, there is no fusion of gametes and no mixing of genetic information. The new plants are identical to the parent plant. They are clones. So, first of all, I'd like you to answer these two questions. How many plants are needed to asexually reproduce? What is the name given to an asexually reproduced plant? Go back, look at the first slide, and then we'll come back with the answer in a moment. So, how many plants are needed to asexually reproduce? Because there is only one parent plant, so only one plant is needed. Okay, what is the name given to an asexually reproduced plant? They are clones. So the term clone. Plants that use asexual reproduction. Other plants produce side branches or runners with new plantlets on. The roots of each plantlet grow down into the soil and the plantlets will grow from the new plants identical to the parent. Spider plants and strawberries are examples of plants that reproduce this way. Daffodil bulbs store energy underground. Once the daffodil plant has died back, the bulb develops side roots that will grow into new daffodils for next year. Potato plants grow tubers underground during the spring and summer. These tubers will grow into new plants and the following spring if they are left undisturbed. So, write down what 3 ways can plants reproduce themselves. So, the 3 ways plants can reproduce themselves are they can produce tubers, they can produce side branches or runners, and the bulb can develop new side shoots because the bulb saves energy in the ground to do this once the bulb has died back. So, can you match the plants to the way that they reproduce below? Spider plants and strawberries, daffodil bulbs and potatoes. Which way do they reproduce? Do they produce tubers? Do they produce side branches or runners? Does the bulb develop new side shoots? So write them down and write down their matching component. So match the plants to the way that they reproduce below. So spider plants and strawberries, they produce the side branches or the runners. The daffodil bulbs, well obviously the clue is there, the bulb develops a new side shoots underneath the ground, and potatoes, if they are left underneath the ground, they produce tubers, and then those tubers then form new potatoes the following year. Plants that use asexual reproduction. Some plants develop bulbs or tubers underground. These bulbs or tubers will develop into new plants for the following year. The new plants will be genetically identical to the new parent plant. Daffodils and potatoes are examples of plants that reproduce this way. Strawberry plants send out runners with small plantlets on these which will grow into a new strawberry plant. Spider plants send out branches with baby plantlets on. Each plantlet will grow into a new plant. So then, tell me, how do spider plants reproduce? Jot that down and then we'll get back with the answer. Well, spider plants are one of these plants that sends out the branches, and the baby plantlets are on the end. And as the baby plantlets drop down towards the ground, they will set new roots into the ground, and they will form a new identical plant, cloned plant to grow. So look at the statements, match the correct statement to the correct headings of the advantages and disadvantages of sexual reproduction. Now look at the statements and match the correct headings, the advantages and disadvantages of asexual reproduction. Remember to write these down and we'll come back with the answers for both on the next slide. So, the advantages and the disadvantages of sexual reproduction are as follows. Okay, so the advantages: diseases will not affect the individuals in a habitat because they will be different, and the species can change over time to adapt to new environments and habitats. The disadvantage: reproduction is not possible for an isolated plant, and time and energy are needed to wait for another parent plant to reproduce with. So those are the advantages and disadvantages of the sexual reproduction. The advantages and disadvantages of asexual reproduction are: there are more advantages. Only one parent plant is needed, so new plants can be made even if there are no other plants nearby. The population can be increased quickly, and good features of the parent plant will always be passed on. So those are the advantages. The one disadvantage is there is no variation or difference in new plants, so the species is less resilient. That's less likely to get disease or change towards climate. So those are our answers for those. You might want to pause this screen so that you can go back and check the answers yourself. Taking cuttings. Taking cuttings from a plant is an artificial method of asexual reproduction. That means it's man-made way. If you are successful, you will make new plants that are genetically identical to the parent plant. Cuttings are small pieces of stem that are carefully removed from the parent plant and encouraged to form their own roots, making new plants. Now, obviously, a person is needed to be involved with doing this. The plant can't do this itself. So the following slides show instructions on how to make cuttings to clone a new plant. First, you cut a side stem that is about 5 centimetres to 10 centimetres long off the main stem of the parent plant. You should cut the side stem just below a leaf joint. A leaf joint is just where the leaf grows onto the plant. Carefully cut off all the leaves except the very top ones. Put each cutting into a beaker or a jar of water. Next, you place the beaker or the jar in a bright place but not in direct sunlight. The direct sunlight could have an effect with the jar and the heat of the water. It could get too warm. Watch your cuttings for a few weeks. If you are successful, your cuttings will develop roots. You will see the roots growing from the bottom. You can then plant each cutting in a pot of compost. You will have created your own cloned plants. Very clever. What I'd like you to do now is I'd like you to explain how each cutting can be made into a new plant and use the words below to help you. I'd like you to try and use each word. You've got the word reproduce, parent, plant, new, roots, identical, same and clone. Okay, pause for a moment, have a go at writing that down, and then we'll get back with some ideas for that. What I came up with was something like this. I bullet pointed the ideas really. To reproduce a new plant, you first need to take a cutting from a side stem of the parent plant. Once the stem has been put into water, the new roots will disappear from the bottom of the stem where the cutting has been taken. As the cutting matures, new leaves will appear and you will have cloned an identical plant to the same as the parent plant. It can be as simple as explanation as that, and all of those words above were used in it. Right, okay, that's the end of today's lesson. So let's hope you've been able to understand a little bit more about how plants can reproduce by themselves, or how man can intervene a little bit by taking cuttings and reproducing and cloning plants. So self-assess, give yourself a smiley face if you think you've done all right, give yourself a okay face if you think you've done all right, and if you've got a grumpy face, well, perhaps read it a bit more closely in the future. Okay, hope you're all okay, take care, and hope to see you all soon. Bye. Now remember, don't forget to share your work with us on WhatsApp or email or via our post box. We do like to see your science work and your geography work that I've been putting on for you, and there's some history work that Mrs. Baskerville's been putting on. So please remember to do these, and also send in your answers for this work as well. We do like to see it. Take care. See you soon, kids. Bye.